Have you ever stopped to think why games could be a better decision-making tool than wars? It's a compelling question, isn't it? Decision-making, particularly in politics and international relations, has traditionally been a matter of power, conflict, and sadly, often war. But imagine if we could replace all that with a friendly game of chess or a round of poker. How would that change the world? Intriguing, isn't it? Let's dive deep into this thought. War, as we know it, is a game of strategy, power, and control. An intriguing statement, isn't it? We often see war depicted as a horrific, chaotic event. But when you strip away the emotional aspects, it becomes a calculated strategy game. Each move, each decision carries weight. The stakes? Sometimes they're as high as the survival of nations. Let's delve deeper into this concept. War, in its essence, is a decision-making process on a global scale. Nations choose to wage war based on a calculated assessment of costs and benefits. It's a game of chess, with each nation carefully positioning its pieces, planning its attacks, and anticipating the opponent's moves. But here's the catch. In this game, the pieces aren't just wooden or plastic figures on a board. They're real people, real lives. And the board isn't a square grid, but our very own planet, scarred and damaged with each move. The costs of war are immense, not just in terms of human lives, but also in terms of resources. Wars drain economies, devastate environments, and leave behind a legacy of pain and trauma that can last for generations. But what if we could strip away these destructive elements? What if we could take the strategic, decision-making aspects of war and place them in a less harmful context? Imagine a scenario where global decisions are made not through violent conflicts, but through games. Games that require the same level of strategy and planning as war, but without the destruction. Games that challenge us, that push us to think critically and make tough decisions, but in a safe environment where the only thing at stake is pride or prestige. War, as we know it, is a game of strategy, power, and control. A statement that holds a lot of truth but also a lot of pain. But what if we could replace this destructive game with something less harmful? A question that invites us to imagine a different, more peaceful world. A world where the games we play reflect not our capacity for destruction, but our capacity for strategy, for creativity, for peace. Games, just like wars, are about strategy, power, and control. But unlike wars, games are contained within a set of rules, a universe of their own that doesn't spill over into the real world. They allow us to test our strategic acumen, to compete, to win and lose without the dreadful costs that wars impose on societies and individuals. Let's take a moment to consider games as a tool for decision-making. Picture a chessboard. Each piece, from the humble pawn to the regal queen, has its role, its strengths, and weaknesses. The game unfolds as a complex dance of strategy and counter-strategy, where foresight, cunning, and daring are rewarded. The players, locked in intellectual combat, must consider not only their current move, but the potential responses of their opponent, the evolving state of the board, and the long-term implications of every decision. Now imagine applying this same concept to the sphere of geopolitics. Nations pitted against each other on a global chessboard. Their moves not made with tanks and bombs, but with trade agreements, alliance formations, and peaceful negotiations. The stakes remain high, but the cost of conflict is measured in diplomatic capital, not human lives. In the gaming universe, there are countless genres, each with its unique mechanics and strategies. From the intricate economies of strategy games to the heart-pounding tension of competitive esports, these virtual playgrounds offer a wealth of lessons in decision-making, resource management, and strategic planning. They provide a safe space to experiment, to learn, to adapt, and most importantly, to understand the consequences of our actions. In the realm of games, wars are not fought, but played out. Their outcomes decided by wit and strategy, not firepower and destruction. They provide a model for a new kind of global interaction, one that values cooperation and competition in equal measure, that rewards intelligence and innovation over aggression and force. Imagine a world where decisions are made on a chessboard, not a battlefield. So, how do games stack up against wars when it comes to decision-making? Well, let's first consider the strategies involved in both scenarios. In wars, strategies are often complex, involving a multitude of factors including geography, alliances, resources, and technology. These strategies are designed with one goal in mind: to win. And the cost of losing? it's astronomical. Lives are lost, economies are shattered, and societies are left to pick up the pieces. Now let's flip the coin and look at games. Games, too, require strategic thinking. Players must consider their resources, their opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and the rules of the game. The objective, again, to win. But here's the kicker. The cost of losing a game is minuscule in comparison to war. At worst, you've bruised your ego and perhaps lost a bit of time. But here's where the true contrast lies. In games, we can achieve the same outcomes as wars: victories, defeats, alliances, betrayals, without the devastating loss. We can simulate real-world scenarios, make tough decisions, and experience the consequences of our actions in a controlled environment. Games also allow for an element of creativity and innovation that is often stifled in war. In the game world, players are encouraged to think outside the box, to devise new strategies, and to take risks. These are valuable skills that can translate into real-world decision-making. What's more, games provide a platform for dialogue and negotiation, fostering a spirit of cooperation and mutual understanding. This is a stark contrast to the divisive nature of war, which pits nations, communities, and even families against each other. So, when we weigh the scales, it's clear that games offer a viable and far less destructive alternative to war for strategic decision-making. The stakes are lower, the environment is controlled, and the potential for learning and growth is enormous. In conclusion, games offer a unique blend of strategy, creativity, and collaboration that can help us navigate complex decisions without the heavy cost of war. So next time you're faced with a tough decision, why not consider the game board instead of the battlefield? The game board might just be the new war room. Games have the potential to change the way we make decisions. Now that's a statement that might have you asking, really? I assure you, it's not as far-fetched as it might seem. Games, in their simplest form, are a series of decisions made within a set of rules. But when we peel back the layers, we find that games can be a profound tool for decision-making, particularly when it comes to complex, real-world scenarios. Take, for instance, chess. This ancient game is a masterclass in strategic thinking. It requires players to anticipate their opponent's moves, consider numerous potential outcomes, and make decisions that will determine their success or failure. It's a game of strategy, foresight, and decision-making that has been used by kings, queens, and generals to hone their strategic skills. Then we have more modern examples like the World Peace Game. This educational game, created by American educator John Hunter, involves school children navigating geopolitical tensions and crises. The goal? Achieve world peace. Through this game, students learn the complexities of decision-making, diplomacy, and conflict resolution. It's not just about learning, though. Games can also be used as a tool to simulate and predict outcomes. For example, the RAND Corporation, a global policy think tank, has been using war games since the 1950s to anticipate and plan for potential conflicts. They use games to test strategies, predict potential outcomes, and make informed decisions. So, why not use games for decision-making on a larger scale? Imagine a world where international disputes are settled not on the battlefield, but on a game board. A world where leaders test their strategies and anticipate outcomes in a game, rather than in real-life conflict. Games can be more than just a pastime. They can be powerful decision-making tools. They can help us understand complex systems, predict outcomes, and make strategic decisions. They can help us avoid conflict and promote peace. Games have the power to change the world one decision at a time. So games or wars, what's your take? As we reach the conclusion of our discussion, let's revisit the key points we've covered. We've explored the power of questions, analyzed the brutal game of war, delved into the strategic depth of games, and compared the two side by side. Through our journey, we've seen how games, in their myriad forms, can serve as powerful tools for decision-making. They can foster critical thinking, promote collaboration, and even simulate real-world scenarios. Games can provide a safe space for experimentation, where the consequences of a wrong decision are not catastrophic, but rather a learning opportunity. Contrast this with war, where decisions can result in irreversible damage, the loss of innocent lives, and the destruction of civilizations. The price of a wrong decision in war is much too high, and the stakes are unimaginably severe. So, we urge you to consider, why not harness the potential of games as tools for decision-making instead of resorting to war? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this matter. Do you think games can effectively replace war as a decision-making tool? Or do you believe that the seriousness of war cannot be replicated in a game? Share your opinions in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, may your decisions be wise and your games be fun.